Coronavirus Amendment 28 to the United States Constitution as Universal Institute of People's Rights and Powers. In this episode, I'll be more prescriptive as if physician and less argumentative as physicist. Now, why do we keep including coronavirus in the title? Because were it not for it, we would be back in business and politics as usual. The reason we keep talking about it is because it has a chokehold on our minds, lives, and livelihoods. The coronavirus is a formidable predator and it isn't going to go away anytime soon. Leibniz said that this is the best of all possible worlds, all things considered. I would add a splinter that democracy is the best of all possible forms of government. The definition is pretty straightforward as demos kratos, people rule. But who is the people? And what is the rule? We are blessed to have such a beautiful document in the United States Constitution of America of 1789. The Preamble, the Articles, the Bill of Rights, and Amendments 11 to 27, and now our proposed Amendment 28. The Preamble is the principle of the Constitution. But what is the Preamble saying? And more importantly, what are its underlying assumptions? This is of vital importance in that what it says conditions its own validity. Its source of inspiration echoes the ideology of the 18th century Enlightenment project of reason of dualism as supposedly right thinking. The problem is dualism, and the solution is paradise. The Preamble, as principle of the Constitution, is but a cookie-cutter application of the principle, capital P, that underlies all principles, small p. Our claim is that paradise is precisely the principle underlying all principles. And lest we've forgotten, the principle underlying all principles is based in turn on a primeval reading of Genesis 1:1a Aleph. Dualism got us as far as the coronavirus 2020 and now is dead on its tracks. Problems previous to this decade found solution from the old toolbox of second millennium Enlightenment reason. Kids from the old toolbox didn't do more than fixes to the old broken system so as to avoid its total breakdown. Fortunately or not, COVID-19 came around and put everything on lockdown to free our minds, save our lives, and in the process crashed our livelihoods. But now that the establishment has finally crashed and has dragged us all into the hole of hopelessness, what's now required is creative thinking outside the usual toolbox to get us out and about again, but better than before. The outcome of the Enlightenment project as guiding reason in political science was the trias politica of Montesquieu, better known as separation of the three powers into legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. Ours, by contrast, would be triada politica, or integration of rights and powers into the triad of, on the one hand, the legislative and executive branches of government, and on the other hand, the Universal Institute of Rights and Powers of the people. Let's start by quoting the text in question of the Preamble to the United States Constitution. The Preamble, and I quote, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." Unquote. Within dualism, the we refers to the population of the United States of America. That much is clear. However, the people, quote, is quite a different matter. As it stands, is nothing more than a background abstraction of primeval reference to human rights and civil society, nothing more than a windbag. Let me insert two working hypotheses. The first states the problem and the second provides the solution. The former assumption is that dualism was the prevailing thinking architecture employed in the drafting of the United States Constitution and remained for the most part valid up to the opening months of 2020. The latter is that paradise is the thinking source that supersedes it, moving forward 21st century and well into the third millennium. The, quote, people is not the United States, nor is it the states. That much we know from the body of the text itself. Better still, let's quote Amendments 9 and 10 in their entirety. Amendment 9, quote, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people, unquote. Amendment 10, quote, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people, unquote. The preamble begins with "We the people," all in oversized letters and capitals, thus constituting the United States of America, but later on falls back to regular font and lowercase and fades into oblivion with "the people" lowercase. The people uppercase went from creative active of the U.S. Constitution to dormant passive as vague human rights and devoid of any real power. The challenge now is how to awaken what lays dormant, going from potency to act of the, quote, rights retained and powers reserved to the people, unquote, to make a difference going forward with our project of democracy third millennium. Like mining oil or minerals or any other natural resources underground, they constitute great natural reserves of energy and wealth buried deep in the earth. The question is how to tap these resources and put them to good use. Unmined resources are as good as not being there to begin with. With dualism, the rights and powers of the people fall between the cracks of the legislative and executive branches of government, taking the form of judiciary and human rights and the like, at best. With dualism, it not only falls through the cracks to the bottom, whereas with paradise, it's fished out of obscurity and placed up front as institution. Let's now say a few words about hermeneutics. Hermeneutics, as arts and sciences of language, refers to translation and interpretation of texts to express meaning. Hermeneutics is Greek as Kabbalah is Hebrew. Hermeneutics of philosophy takes after dualism just as hermeneutics of Kabbalah takes after paradise. Greek hermeneutics is light, while Hebrew hermeneutics is heavyweight. My version of hermeneutic is triadic, inclusive of all arts and sciences. It is a power tool like no other, unlike the rusty and electric ones in the old toolbox lying around in the shed. To tackle the coronavirus crisis, we need a heavyweight real version. No decaf version will get the job done this time around. Now we can finally address the opening question of the who is the people and what is the rule of we the people rule, respectively. Dualism got us as far as the Crisis 2020 vision. Now that we have adequately identified the human, properly speaking, we can now proceed to define it as culture, as above nature and below the divine, standing as it were on the shoulders of nature and hanging from the soul of the divine. Culture we all identify as having its seat in knowledge, instituted in the university, college, and school. Who is the people referred to in Amendments 9 and 10? Its culture instituted as university, as already mentioned in our proposed Amendment 28. Seeing with horror the ineptitude of the dual public government and private market as in the bailout, they cannot be trusted to get us out of the hole. The only way out is whole. No more goofing off this time, for life is simply too precious. I thus postulate Amendment 28, the universal power in charge of constituting the rights of the people reserved as the universal power of peoplehood, henceforth having government, market, and peoplehood. This latter one is manager model of sorts. Universal power of peoplehood integrates the judiciary branch, third branch of government, as well as the news media, the so-called fourth power of government. Additionally, it incorporates the overreach of government since the New Deal legislation, along with numerous others better known as human rights and civil society. Also, the news media sniffs the tail of politics. The judiciary is the spoils of the executive and legislative branches in a duocracy. Much more is needed and expected of both, and they will play a better role in the new setup. Furthermore, mention must be made of the university and the community as seed of crystallization to nucleate as the universal institute of rights and powers of the people, lumping them all in one unit. Who is the people and what are its rights? The people is culture instituted at university, so peoplehood rights is universal power. Now, having in mind all the above considerations, now to the drawing board to rescue our world from breakdown to one of wholeness, as managing model of sorts. Conditions on the ground are such of impotency of the establishment to pull us out of the crises. The solution is the Universal People's Institute, who should be in charge of health, education, social security, work security, news media, and so on in the pursuit of justice. The finishing touches are better off left to experts in the field, once having laid out the outline in broad strokes. As for its constitution, solely of schools, colleges, and universities, that is, by students, staff, both academic and administrative. Only these can vote their officers. Dualism doesn't provide a clue as to what to do, much less how to institutionalize rights into powers of the people. That's why it passes as nothing other than human rights, NGOs, foundations, charities, nonprofits, and so on, better known as civil society, protesting yet never proposing a deliverance roadmap. In dualism, the real things are we, the population, and the United States of America, the government, relegating the people to somewhere in between abstraction of definition, not being found in the two existence of not being one or the other. It, the people, ends up in neither nor, a void imagination. Herein, we're proposing cashing in on the rights retained and powers reserved to the people in Constitutional Amendment 9 and 10 by instituting entitlements by way of the universal power of peoplehood, as enshrined in our proposed Constitutional Amendment 28. Basically, what we're saying is that it was not essentially defined on the one hand executive or legislative branches of government, nor on the other hand the United States or the states, is Universal People's Institute. All the rights retained to the people need institutionalizing as powers reserved to the people in the Universal People's Institute. Allow me to read the text of the proposed amendment. Amendment 28. Creation of the Universal Institute of Rights and Powers of the People founded on, quote, we the people of the Preamble, quote, rights retained by the people, and, quote, powers reserved to the people of Amendments 9 and 10, respectively. The Universal People Institute will be the catch-all of all rights and powers, not in the essential definition of, on the one hand, the United States or the states, nor, on the other hand, the legislative or executive branches of government. In our knowledge-driven world, the university, college, and school is recognized as the seat of crystallization of culture to nucleate into the Universal People's Institute. To further its purpose, it will be autonomous, independent, self-governing, and sovereign, electorally solely consisting of students, teachers, and staff. The Universal People's Institute will be in charge of the judiciary, healthcare, high-tech startups, social security, education, news media, and all other organizations in the pursuit of justice. Well, that's all, people. Yours truly, Rick, and GD Bless, Austin, Texas, capital of the world. Thank you.